Hey guys, Jeremy Parvin here. Welcome back to my channel. As you know, I've built a passive income stream of over $50,000 a month with rental property income. My portfolio is currently worth over $6.5 million. I've done all this while working a full-time job, and on my channel, I'm going to teach you how you can do it too. So I've started receiving my reappraisal or reassessment letters from the local property tax assessor. I've received about a third of them, and so far they've increased by about 39% from the previous assessment. Now my county does this only once every 4 years. Some municipalities do it every year, every 3 years, every 4, every 5. But I actually called our tax assessor today, and he said that the average increase is going up about 30 to 33% across the county. He did mention that we've had 2 back-to-back years of a 15% increase in sales prices in real estate. With the prices of today's real estate skyrocketing, it's very important that you take a look at these assessments to make sure that your property is being valued at a reasonable rate. This rate is obviously going to be used to determine how much your property tax bill is each year. The average American household spends about $2,500 a year on property taxes, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And the average effective tax rate is approximately 1.07%, but in some states it can be as high as 3 and 4%. My county is about 0.69% and the city is about 0.67%. The total of the two is 1.36%. Generally, from my experience, if you're in the city, it's about double. Last year, I paid over $30,000 in residential property taxes and another $30,000 in commercial real estate taxes. So a 39% increase for me would equal $23,000 annually. And since my county does this only once every 4 years, it's certainly worth my time to pay some attention to this to minimize my tax burden. I've challenged previous assessments in the past. It's a pretty simple process. My batting average has been about 50% of what I've asked for I've gotten, which has saved me thousands of dollars in property taxes. Even when you pay off your home or your rental properties, you'll never be free of paying taxes on them. But I'll walk you through this simple process and give you some hints and tips so that you can minimize your taxes. Hey guys, Lily is back from vacation. We have missed her. She's been gone for 2.5 weeks, I believe. So she just wanted to remind everyone to be sure to hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, share this with others, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and comment on every video. Okay, so let's get into it. So depending on your jurisdictions or your county's frequency, you should receive a tax assessment or reassessment notice in the mail. This generally happens in the spring. If not, just Google your local county and tax assessor. You can then put in the address or your last name and first name. Or just give them a call and ask them when to expect these or when their typical cycle is. If you look it up online, you can also look to see which address they have for you that they will mail these out to. And when it comes to rental property, a lot of times they'll mistakenly have the rental property's address and they send it there and you never receive it. And you can update those addresses. So property taxes are paid in arrears or after the fact. They may be paid in your monthly payment to your bank with your mortgage. It will also include your insurance perhaps, or maybe you don't have an escrow at all and you just pay them directly. Either way, you should get the tax reassessment letter and review it, because if your taxes go up, your mortgage payment will certainly go up even if you're in an escrow. Lenders like to escrow your taxes and insurance so that you can just pay a monthly portion of that each time you make your monthly mortgage payment, so that there'll be enough money there whenever those bills are due and they pay them for you. It just helps them with their investment in your property through your mortgage to make sure those things are paid on time, and it makes it easy for you. I actually encourage people to choose having an escrow if it's an option or not. About half my properties do have an escrow and half of mine do not. One thing I do want to say is that in theory, as long as your property value doesn't go up more than the average property values of everyone else in your county or jurisdiction, or say your neighbors, in theory, your property taxes should not go up. They're supposed to increase the property value assessments, but collect the same amount of tax revenue with the reassessment process. But they can also do a tax rate increase at the same time. And when they do a tax reassessment and increase the base or the value of all the properties, that naturally brings the effective tax rate for the properties down. And so it's very easy for it to look like the tax rates came down when in fact they actually went up a little bit inside of that. Another confusing detail in this process is the word assessment versus appraisal. And in some jurisdictions, they just use assessed value on your tax card or tax letter or tax reassessment. And in some markets, they just simply say market value, which is very simple to the layperson. My county actually has both. It has an assessed value, and right beside it shows a market value. And the assessed value in my county is simply 25% of the market value, so that's pretty easy. Personally, I think they do this to confuse people so that if you see an assessed value and it's some amount that's say 25% of the relative value of your house, you're kind of confused, you don't know what it is, so you just kind of pay it and go on, and that's easy for them. On the other hand, if you receive a tax bill and it says your assessment is worth 10 or 15 or 20% higher than you believe your house is worth, people get pretty upset and they inundate the county office with phone calls, so it's a lot of work for these counties. I found a good article on tricks for lowering your property tax bill by Investopedia. I wanted to kind of walk through a couple of things on this. This is funny. If you ask most homeowners if they think their property taxes are high, they'll usually say yes. And property taxes do go for good causes. I mean, they're typically used to fund the local things in your county, such as your fire department, your law enforcement, your public recreation, education. One of the things this recommends doing is to understand your bill and also to review it to make sure it's accurate. Look at that tax card, look to make sure it's the correct number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, land size, and that sort of just the basic general elements of your property. Here's another one. The counties actually hire a third party to do the assessment, and that assessment may be done by an in-person visit or may be done by some software. And here's some things not to do, particularly in a case if these are done every several years like in my county. Put it on your calendar and know when each assessment period is. Try to postpone making your house look good or worth more leading up to a reassessment year. So for example, don't build any structures on the home. Don't do anything that makes it worth more. Don't build a deck and a pool and a shed and those sort of things. Limit your curb appeal. Keep it looking ugly as possible until after this period is over. Research your neighbor's property when you look up on the computer and you see how much your neighbors are assessed for, and look at that as it compares to yours and see if they have features that you don't. If their properties are assessed less than yours and they have features that you don't, such as a swimming pool, their house is larger, their lot is bigger, and things like those are very valid things for you to share with the tax assessor's office to get your taxes lowered. Another recommendation is, if you feel like yours is valued too much, is to simply call the phone number on your assessment letter or call the county assessor's office directly. Tell them that it's overvalued and invite them to walk through the house with you. But basically call their bluff. Say, hey, come look at my house. Another thing is to look for exemptions. And this depends on jurisdictions, but you can call up and ask. It's a no unless you ask, right? Seniors, veterans, people with certain abilities, agricultural properties. There are special things for people where you can get a lower tax bill. Something I wanted to add to that actually was some states have really great homestead exemptions. Georgia has this. I'm in Tennessee but close to the Georgia line, and I actually have 3 properties in Georgia. This homestead exemption is for owner-occupied properties only, so your primary residence, not rental properties. All these exemptions you have to know about and apply for. But for example, in Georgia, you can be granted a $2,000 exemption. So imagine saving $2,000 every year just by applying for this and figuring this out. They're not as great in Tennessee. The other thing this article mentioned was if you have a very expensive house or if you have commercial property, there are attorneys that just specialize in this. And if you want to hire one of them, you can find one that does it on a contingency basis. And what that means is there is no risk to you. If they can get it lowered for you, then you pay them a portion of whatever they saved you. So I think a big takeaway with this article is just most people just assume they receive the bill and they think it's due. They think there's nothing they can do about it. They might complain about it, but they don't do anything about it. Know that you really can. And these guys at the tax office are pretty nice guys. They're just normal people and they're very reasonable. The guy you call, the person you talk to, they're not the ones that made the assessment. They just work there. These people are very reasonable and compassionate in my experience. I do recommend if you call, make some notes in your phone or whatever about the name of the person you spoke to And when you call back again, ask for that same person again to develop a relationship. I think little things like that go a long way so that you're treated more like a person and not just a number. So like I mentioned before, I've only received about a third of mine so far. I'm going to call back next week to check on the others. I'm going to put mine in a spreadsheet where I already have a recent value where I've looked them up on Zillow from the refinancing that I'm working to do by the end of the month. And I just listed the reappraisal amount. On the reappraisal letters, it shows you what it was the previous time. So I list that also. And from that, you can calculate a percentage increase. And then I also show that against the amount that Zillow shows to give me a couple of different views on one simple spreadsheet. And so on this, I'm going to be looking to see which ones I think are out of bounds. As I've mentioned before in my previous videos, Zillow is a fantastic resource for you to figure out roughly kind of what your property is worth. You simply go to Zillow.com, put in the address of your property, and it'll give you a quick estimate of kind of what it's worth. It'll show you a range. The other thing that I want to show you here is that when you're trying to find comps, they call them, or comparable homes, that you're going to show the tax assessor as to why yours is overpriced, I highly recommend looking for other things within the subdivision or within on the same street. To do that, you simply need to search on Zillow. When you're trying to find the value of a house, you want to look for homes that sold, not for what people are asking for them, not for houses for sale. You want to look for houses that sold. To do this, we're going to click on buy. So we're going to look again for the High Street property, but instead of putting the address, I'm just going to put High Street. Then once you get here, click on the map over here on your left. Okay, this is my house here. I'm going to click on sold. There we go. Sometimes you have to fiddle with that to get it to show the amounts. And so you can see some sales. On the right, it'll show you some of those, and you can scroll down to see the others. So what I would do is start off by looking at the lowest price ones that show up on this. So here's a good one. Here's one for $144,000. Let's click on that. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,729 square feet. Probably very, very comparable to mine. It sold for $144,000 and it sold in 2018. That's a little old. They're going to be looking for something that sold within about 6 months to maybe a year if you're lucky. They'll also give you a hard time with foreclosures. I would recommend getting 2 or 3 that are not foreclosures to have with you. They might throw out all of your foreclosures. I disagree with it, but I would bring them anyway. So what's nice over here on the right, you can actually see when it was sold. And so this one would certainly be a comp due to the age of it. Look for the inexpensive ones that have sold within the last 6 months. And then on your spreadsheet, put this address, put this amount that it sold for, put the square feet, and then divide the amount by the square footage to get dollars per square foot and multiply that dollar per square foot by yours. You're basically looking for the cheapest amount of square foot homes that sold for comps. And if you multiply that square footage by your square footage, therefore your house should be worth X amount. These would be great to print off. It's great to have dates when you print off photos. So I expect to appeal anything that I think is out of bounds. I may even go through the ones that are not necessarily out of bounds in my opinion, but go through to look for other sales in the neighborhood that may be lower than what I'm kind of thinking or lower than what the Zillow price that I have on my list is. And if I can get it assessed lower based on some other recent comparable sales, it will save me taxes for the next 4 years. Something else to print off to have available to show the tax assessor or bring with you are some photos of anything that needs to be repaired of your properties. Basically, the uglier the better. If the roof needs to be replaced, or the gutters, or the deck, or the plumbing, or the electric, or the windows are kind of foggy, right? The seals have been broken, things like that. The yard that's overgrown, drainage problems. Show some flooding pictures. I've got a few properties that have some water issues. Another thing to do is do a Google aerial view. Highlight any negative things. If your property happens to be next to a commercial property, which I have at least one of those, you can mention that it's noisy. For example, the dumpster truck comes at 3 a.m. at that property. It wakes everyone up. There's a lot of traffic over there. I've got a few houses that are on a busy road. That's kind of less desirable because of the traffic and the noise. So again, when you print off these pictures, make sure you date stamp the photo so when you print it out, it has the date on it. Otherwise, your photographs may be inadmissible. So I'll be doing a follow-up to this video as I work through this process, receive my other tax cards and do my analysis, as well as meeting with the adjusters to see what kind of reduction that I get in my tax assessments and in my tax bill or my tax obligations. Don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed this video and share it with others. I really appreciate all your help in getting us to grow our subscriber base so we can reach that 1,000 subscriber number. Please let me know in the comments any tips and tricks that you know of or you've heard of about reducing your taxes. Also, let us know how much you have saved.
Oh, and although I am a licensed CPA and I have 3 business degrees, I'm just a guy on YouTube with my dog, so please be sure to ask your professionals before making any investment decisions. Until next time, thank you so much.